Alrighty, we're back. Your favorite podcast show of the week. It's Location Weekly. It's episode number 541. And we are recording live on Tuesday, November the 2nd. Yes, it is November now. Halloween is done. The kids have eaten way too much candy, and parents too, probably. And yeah, we got a good show for you. How are you, Ariana?
I am good. Yes, Halloween is done. I'm like excited to put up Christmas decorations soon. Got to get the pumpkins and skeletons down, bats, all the fun spider webs out of here. But yeah, Halloween was great. We had a good time. We did a family costume, Bob Ross, and some happy little trees, and then my kids had a great time trick-or-treating as Barry and Wednesday Adams. And yeah, it was fun to like explore the neighborhood, our first Halloween here in New York. But yes, it's exhausting, like all these activities, and my kids are still little. I can't even imagine how, adults with older children function on a over the weekend. It's intense. You almost look forward to Monday, right? But things are good. Yes, the Braves are headed into game 6 tonight, right? Yes,
Yeah.
game 6 tonight. So we are hopeful. We were hoping for a win at home, but I think they'll pull it off. I don't know. How are you?
I'm okay. Yeah, I spent most of last week in Ottawa at the Tourism Industry Association conference, which was amazing. First time, sort of being in a room there with people, and that was fun. And we won an award for our Canatrace work. Sort of helping the industry out, which was amazing. So that was nice. And yeah, and then my kids are at the other end of the spectrum of yours. So I have one in university and one in high school, and it's funny. The university one actually made her own costume and kind of with her little group of friends kind of went to some party last night or the other night, Sunday night I guess it was, and did that somewhere on campus. And she dressed up as a strawberry. They went as a bunch of fruit. They all were different pieces of fruit.
Very
Um,
creative.
so she made her own strawberry costume, and my son didn't dress up. He instead went and chaperoned his younger cousins around the neighborhood. So yeah, so that's what was happening. So
Awesome.
yeah, and we're just back at it. Yeah, I mean, go Braves, all over that. So let's see if they can pull it out tonight. And although, like, it probably would be nicer to win it at home. I don't know if we really want to wait till the game 7, but
Yeah.
yeah, just win it,
I think
right? Just win
we'll
it.
just take the win. We'll take the
Just take
win.
the
Yeah.
win. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we have a good show for you this week. 4 stories as usual, and a little bonus at the start here. Brianna's going to kind of walk us through, but let her kick it off.
Well, I just thought it'd be great to bring up, some big news that happened this week with the rebrand of Facebook to Meta, the metaverse here. This is interesting. It is in some ways, as I'm sure you will allude to here, it is just, a parent company naming convention. But I think in other ways, it signals maybe some I don't know, some tumultuous ground there, right? Like some changes and maybe not in a good direction. For me, I think sometimes a rebrand a lot of times is a negative sign. It can be the beginning of the end. And of course, when I heard the metaverse, I immediately thought of Meta World Peace. I'm pretty sure was the basketball player that renamed himself. So that's kind of where I went, just like a little bit off the rails. It's interesting. I think that again, rebrand is not really ever a great thing. I think there's some concerns, there's been some changes in the company's stock, that we might see happening in December. But yeah, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's kind of like, there's been a lot of controversy about Facebook lately, and Zuckerberg's kind of all over the place, and the stock's kind of tumbling, and, they've been hit hard by Apple's, privacy changes, and, there's just a lot of things going on, and yet, they continue to kind of grow their portfolio of platforms and solutions, with, not just Facebook, but WhatsApp and Instagram and, other messenger services and other location platforms, and, getting into augmented reality and virtual reality and all these things that they're trying to do. And so I kind of see it as, in this time of difficult public, perception for the company right now, this sort of branding change is something that they're trying to put in place to, sort of stem that tide a little bit. And as you said, it's really just a holding company name change. So the platforms, the brands, if you will, the products, as in Facebook and so on, will remain as Facebook, or Instagram or what have you. So they're not changing any of that. It's just the corporate sort of holding company name is now Metaverse. Not unlike Google, who, most people may or may not know, but parent company of Google is called Alphabet. And they have obviously several properties underneath that, besides the Google search engine. They have, Waze and, many other things that they do, that are, Wi-Fi companies and all sorts of other things that they do, right? So, I kind of see it a little bit like that, as, putting a new focus on the holding company that maybe lets them kind of change public perception a little bit. That's it. All right, so let's jump into our main stories. You've got the first one here in the
I
restaurant space.
do. Yeah, this is interesting to me, but Chili's restaurants, the fast casual dining, is testing out a server robot. They're calling this robot Rita, appropriately. So Chili's has, over 1,600 locations, and they are working with Bear Robotics, and they have deployed, I think, the fifth robot to the fifth, a robot to the fifth Chili's about a week ago or so. And they've been adding new locations almost every day. So, they might be up to 10 or so by now. And this is interesting to me because I don't know what the effects have been like in Canada, but here in the States, because of COVID and unemployment and just challenges with a lot in the restaurant industry, it's been really difficult to find help. In the beginning, the restaurant industry took a really hard hit. Just because people were staying in and they weren't, ordering out, and everybody was kind of freaked out about getting anything outside of the house. And as we've learned more, I think it's been a lot more food delivery, right? We've definitely increased that, but it's been tough now that people are back out, and restaurants are, seating at higher capacities now. It's been a struggle for these restaurant owners to hire and have help that's consistent. And it's been an issue here in the States for more than just the restaurant industry, for sure. It's just a high impact, across every industry almost. And so this could potentially be signaling, hey, maybe we're going to move to a 50-50 split where we have more, robots serving less servers, and it's a bigger win from a revenue generation standpoint. And you don't have to worry about who's calling in sick, who's calling in sick, or who's going to show up or not show up. And so I think that this is really interesting. This Bear Robotics also, speaking of, Google is a ex-Googler, founded by John Ha. And he started off with, testing out his first robot called Penny in his own restaurant in California. And now he's, working with this new robot, the second generation, called Servi, but obviously in Chili's it's going to be called Rita. So I think this is interesting. I do think this is one to pay attention to and see how does it affect the industry. Are more and more companies like Starbucks going to have this, more of a machine operated workforce and less human interaction? I think there's some things that there will always be human interaction for, but to an extent, if you can't find good help, then they're going to build it almost. So what do you think?
Completely agree with you. So first of all, I love that this company that, the creator of the technology Bear Robotics, this guy, John Ha, sort of he's not just a tech guy. He comes from the industry. He had his own restaurant, saw an opportunity and decided to sort of embrace technology and test it out. And now, sort of building something that is beneficial to the industry at large. So I love those kinds of stories. First of all, I think what you touched on in terms of the sort of staffing issues. I think is a huge point, and we're definitely seeing it here in Canada. In fact, at the conference I was at last week, half of the panelists and keynotes were talking about that issue. I know the head of operations for the hotel that hosted the conference was one of the panelists, and he said that they're over 30% of their staff that they had sort of let go when nobody was there and everything was shut down, are just not coming back. Like they're not even they've gone. Like they're just off doing other things and don't have any interest in coming back, and they're having difficulty finding people. And to make that even worse, here in Ontario today, in fact, our premier is going to make an announcement shortly, in about half an hour, that they're raising the legal minimum wage to $15 an hour, which will make it even worse for those types of businesses that are wait staff and these kinds of employees, where now those small businesses, those independent restaurants and bars and so on, are going to have to pay more for these people, let alone they're barely sort of operating and after being shut down for months on end. So I think it's challenging. So I think technology like this, and robotics and things like that are worth exploring for any business that has sort of the capital or the interest to test, to see what that balance might be in the future. So I quite like it.
Yeah.
All right, second story. We're going over to New Zealand now to look at a company called Locky Dock Media Network. So this one's kind of interesting. So this is a new digital out-of-home media network. So if you're not familiar with Locky Dock, a Locky Dock is a secure locking charging station for e-bikes and e-scooters. And so these are all over the place in New Zealand. And so what they've done is they've built this sort of platform that sort of kind of incorporates digital signage into these charging stations. So it's a secure parking charging station and wayfinding station with digital signage and media. The idea of kind of what they're going for is that sort of the ads are sort of focused on public good and environmental friendliness, and sort of focusing on carbon-free campaigns. And obviously e-bikes and e-scooters are kind of sort of fit into that genre or that theme. And so so I think this is kind of interesting because they say that they're getting or they're targeting 11 million impressions per month across their network. And they've got 30 sites so far, with these screens hooked up, to these charging stations. And I think it's interesting. I think it speaks to, a growing trend that we're seeing in especially in big cities. I know here in Toronto, for example, we have a lot of these sort of e-bikes and e-scooter things in the downtown core, where you can go and pick one up and, they're sitting there, charged up. And so why not have digital signage or media, tied into that, that is focused on, environmental friendly, climate, conscious, types of campaigns, for people who are, obviously care something about that they're going to go and get an e-bike or an e-scooter from one of these stations. So I think this makes sense. I can see this replicating in different cities and different countries, and I like it. Thoughts?
Yeah, I like it too. I think it's good. And I also like how they've partnered with the health society there, and treating this as not only are we doing something healthy for the world and climate change and the environment, but we're also trying to push something that's healthy for people, and kind of getting out and being active and having better health and well-being. So I think that's a good opportunity for, I believe it's a Southern Cross Health Society. So they're trying to connect with e-bikers. Obviously, it's a natural fit for them, trying to just encourage health and well-being from a health insurance perspective. So I think it's a great campaign. I think it brings together, the right audience. And yeah, I mean, we obviously have the city bikes here in New York. And when we were doing house hunting and looking in the city, it was a great way to get around and also really explore the different neighborhoods and kind of see like how things change. Because when you ride on a train or, you kind of lose a little bit of that, the ability to kind of really check out what's going on around you. So I really liked that experience, and I can see how the digital signage is a great opportunity as well. And you get it, and just because it's an e-bike, you also know who your audience is a little bit better, that it is somebody who's active, it is somebody who's interested perhaps in avoiding traffic, or getting around a little bit more effectively, or concerned with climate change, and all of the carbon outputs from the cars. So I like this story. I think it's good. And we always like to have a feel good story on here anyways.
For sure. Yeah.
All right, so let's go over to India with this next story. We've got a company called ProMobi, and they have released a new technology that tracks frontline workers. So, really what this is, it's a company. They have a few different technologies. This new one is called Nuovo Team. And it's really this all-in-one app that's designed to help these small to medium-sized businesses that are, deploying non-desk workers, frontline workers, and it helps generate like a centralized monitoring system. So how productive are the employees? How can they have improved communication? Some of the different things that they talked about is like how they could easily, clock in and clock out via an app. Have this web-based console so that administrators and everybody can kind of have access to this and supervise things remotely. Also, assign task lists, any type of like corporate communication as a whole. Also secure communication, so making sure that attachments and things of that nature are very secure, group chats, broadcast messaging, all these different types of things, as well as HR and crisis communication. So some of the industries that they're really targeting here are obviously the healthcare industry, construction, manufacturing, first responders, oil and gas industry. I was even thinking about perhaps applications for more like the telecommunications when they're installing any type of lines or cable, anything like that. It's probably a good application here, and they have it available on both Android and iOS. Yeah, I mean, I think this is interesting. There's obviously a lot of different types of applications for communication, depending on the type of industry that you're in. I think that a lot of the Slack-like types that are available typically are targeted more towards just communication and more desk workers. So the fact that this has a lot of different features, including like GPS and, that type of tracking is good. It's a little bit creepy, maybe from an employee standpoint, thinking about, all right, are they tracking my every move? Am I not going to be productive enough? Like, how am I being measured? How am I being weighed? But I think from an employer perspective, it's nice to have a hub to bring everybody together, even though you might be out in the field. So I like this for troubleshooting, being able to ask quick questions and hopefully get quick responses, rather than maybe thinking about it from a walkie-talkie version where you have to, radio a one-on-one every single time, but maybe being able to ask something to a broader group. I can see how that could speed things up as well. So I think this is good. It's another new offering that's out there, and potentially a good fit for some of these industries.
Yeah, don't have a lot to add to this one, but I'll say this: I think there's a movement, afoot right now, which is, around, as we've kind of gone more and more to, remote working, right? Whether that's people in the field that aren't in an office and we don't see them, or people are, working from home, or whatever the case might be. There's this sort of wave of a need for sort of monitoring productivity and understanding what's going on and who's where and what are they doing, and sort of staying in contact with them, so that people are on track and on task, and sort of having a conduit back to the mothership, whatever that might be. And so I think that we're going to see many solutions emerge over the next coming months to really sort of focus in on that piece. And so I think this Nuovo Team app sort of falls into that sphere of types of solutions. And as you were talking, I was thinking about a mutual friend of ours, David Shim, who created Placed and then sold that to Foursquare, has a new company in this space as well called Read AI, and it's really more sort of focused on kind of assessing using AI and facial recognition type technologies, assessing productivity in Zoom meetings and things like that. Are people actually engaged? Are they tuned into what's going on, or are they just kind of completely sort of phased out? So things like that, and what Nuovo team and ProMobi are doing here, I think make a ton of sense, because it's really important to make sure that if we're going to say flexible working environments are good and okay, and we support that, and we want to continue with that, we're not all coming back to the office. There is still a need, like some sort of corporate responsibility to make sure that people are actually doing work, right, and being productive in what they're doing. So I think there's lots of ways to apply technology around that, and so I like what these guys are doing in that sense. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, final story now. So we've talked a lot on this show about the rise of Uber Eats and other types of delivery services out there, and there are many now. And here comes another one, and I thought this one was kind of interesting. So created by the CEO is a guy named Mike McConnell, and the company is called EzFill. It's EzFill, one word. And this is all about on-demand delivery of gasoline. So I'm sitting here going, I don't know. Like, I don't really sit around my house with my car going, I really need gas brought to me right now. Yes, groceries make sense. Takeout food makes sense. There are a lot of things like that DoorDash and Instacart and all these guys are doing that make sense. But gasoline delivery, I don't know. I mean, how often am I sitting around, at home needing gasoline? Like, maybe my lawnmower is out, but then I hop in my car with my little tank and I go fill it up and come back, right? Or things like that. I'm struggling with this one, and I don't know. I mean, if they're able to find some efficiencies in bulk purchasing and share that to consumers with the rise in fuel prices or things like that, okay, maybe there's an argument to be made here that they can kind of disrupt the traditional gas stations in that sense. But I don't know. I mean, I struggle with this. They've raised $29 million in initial funding. That's a lot. They're currently only operating in the Miami and surrounding area. Yeah, I don't know. They say, like, I mean, it's not just retail. I mean, they have this for fleets, as well, and corporate type of filling up, where they bring the fuel to you. So maybe that's a more applicable market than me as the average consumer. But I'm struggling with this one. What are your thoughts?
So I immediately thought of, I don't know if this is a story that we covered on the podcast, but it was several years ago. There was another company. I don't believe it was EzFill, but they were focused on corporate campuses and providing gas fill ups to those big corporate campuses in Silicon Valley or wherever, where you have so many cars. This was pre-pandemic, obviously, parked and just could have that happen like while they were working. It was kind of like the dry cleaning that comes and gets picked up and dropped off. And I think that made a lot of sense. I do think that this potentially is beneficial, specifically in areas where it's hard to get to a gas station. So if this is something that could work in a New York City, for example, there are not a lot of gas stations actually in the city. So if you are running low on gas and you are not in an area where there's a gas station, which, if you are familiar with the city, there's just not a lot of opportunities to pull over and get gas like you see in, other cities such as Atlanta or maybe Toronto. It's a little bit harder to come by. Out here, we're right out of the city, and so it's a little bit easier for us to drive a mile down the road and get a gas station. But even then, they're not as close around as they were down in the South. So I think that there's a place for this potentially, and I do believe that if it's something that can potentially work with, let's say, a park mobile, where there's a partnership where you say, while I'm parked, I want to also have my gas tank filled up and just go ahead and bill me. I think there's some opportunity for those things. Just again, the convenience factor, saving people time. Home delivery in suburban areas, likely not going to be a huge, a huge sell, but you never know. People are getting more and more used to having everything delivered. So I think Miami might be a good place to start because once you get closer to the beach, there are less gas stations around that area. But I don't know. We'll have to kind of pay attention and see what is the consumer behavior on this one. Is it adoption or not?
Yeah, and I think like yeah, I mean I hear you about like cities like New York where it's hard to find gas stations. So yeah, that makes sense to me. And even the sort of corporate campus example that you gave earlier, I like it, and I think I see that like if you're a Silicon Valley type of company, and you're building those kind of crazy sort of employee benefits packages, where you get your lunch made for you and you get gas pumped in your car while your car is sitting in the parking lot. All those kinds of things as a package sort of make sense, and yet the concept of that sort of has less and less value now if we're working from home, right? So I think there's a trade-off there. There's a timing issue there that needs to be looked at, but we will get back to an office at some point, I believe.
Airports, there's always
Airports, there you go.
right
There
there.
you go. So yeah, or maybe like even with your rentals or things like that,
Mhm.
could be interesting. So all right, well that's our show. 4 stories this week and a little bit of discussion about the metaverse. We thank you for listening and watching. This has been episode number 541 of Location Weekly. We thank you for your time. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye.